As of the end of 2024, I have ridden 159 roller coasters in 51 parks across 13 countries. 148 are made of steel, with 11 made from wood. Over the next 2 days, we're going to count down my top 100 roller coasters. This represents the top 62% of my roller coaster credits, so these videos will range from coasters that I think are just okay or decent, all the way to the most elite roller coasters I've ridden so far. This is part 1, which will count down positions 100 to 51. Part 2 will release tomorrow and will count down positions 50 to 1. Of my top 100, 90 are steel and 10 are wood. The most commonly represented country was the United Kingdom, with 25 of my top 100 being in the UK. By manufacturer, it's a three-way tie between Intamin, Mark and Vekoma, each with 16 of my top 100. The most successful parks were Alton Towers and Europa Park, both with 7 of their coasters making the list, and 32% of the coasters on the list were constructed in the 2000s, with 26 from the 2010s and 22 from the 2020s. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the ranking. Number 100 is Roller Coaster at Taipei Children's Amusement Park. This is an IE Park family coaster that gave me a very pleasant surprise. The first drop has a little more power to it than I expected, and the ride overall was fun and smooth. It's not what I was expecting from this little coaster model. Number 99 is Herky and Timmy's Racing Coaster at Everland. This is a Vekoma Junior coaster that actually runs its train backwards, which is cool and unique. The layout is a little shorter than most roller skaters, but still had some fun twists and turns, and riding it backwards added to the fun. Number 98 is Roadrunner Roller Coaster at Warner Bros. Movie World. This is a Vekoma Junior coaster that has really improved over the years. The addition of Vekoma's new trains made this ride a whole lot more comfortable, and Movie World have always been great at keeping the theming looking nice. Number 97 is Surf Rider at Wet n Wild Gold Coast. This was an Intamin surf rider, and I don't know why it was ever at Wet n Wild. The operations were absolutely terrible, probably because it was the only mechanical ride at the park. It also looked so out of place, and the ride was nothing special aside from a little bit of floater airtime. Number 96 is Ipanema Skate Ride at VinWonders Phu Quoc. This is an Intamin surf rider, however it has lap bars instead of over-the-shoulder restraints. This is an excellent choice. The floater airtime is made so much better by the freedom those lap bars provide. Number 95 is Spuck, a travelling coaster in Europe. This is a dark ride built by Barbizan Rides, and it's one of the most bizarre coasters out there. It has trains that are capable of controlled rotation and a few short drops, as well as live scare actors and some really graphic show scene moments. Number 94 is Puss in Boots Giant Journey at Universal Studios Singapore. This is a family suspended coaster built by Zamperla, and while the coaster is nothing too special, the theming on this ride is so fun and engaging. It's just a really cute ride, and I have such a soft spot for it. Number 93 is Crazy Coaster, a travelling coaster in Australia. This is a Revachon spinning coaster that I rode at the Hawkesbury show in Sydney. I've never been a fan of Revachon's car design, and this one was the worst of the bunch in terms of upkeep. Number 92 is Wild Mouse, a travelling coaster in Europe. This is another Revachon spinning coaster, slightly newer and better maintained than Crazy Coaster. I didn't think my car spun that much, but that can be just luck of the draw. Number 91 is Twistosaurus at Flamingo Land. This is a Zamperla twister coaster that manages to get some serious rotation despite its small layout. I was sat alone in a car and was spun super aggressively, which actually made it a very fun ride for what it is. Number 90 is Jacko's Coaster, a backyard coaster in New Zealand. I will never stop raving about this backyard coaster. Its initial 80-degree drop is a pure ejector moment, followed by another as you rise into the next airtime hill. You can tell it's homemade, but it has to be one of the best backyard coasters ever. Number 89 is Taipan, a travelling coaster in Australia. This is an SDC Galaxy that used to operate at SeaWorld and has now been fully restored on the travelling circuit. It has very freeing restraints that allow you to enjoy the awesome airtime over the drops, and it runs pretty smoothly for what it is. Number 88 is Dingo Racer at Aussie World. This is a Revachon spinning coaster and the first permanent installation of their new layout. It has a little more to offer than your standard Revachon spinning mouse, including this funky wave turn element that's a lot of fun. The theming is bizarre, but decent. Number 87 is Souris Verte at Parc St. Paul. This is a Zamperla twister coaster and it outshines any of the Reverchon spinning mouse coasters I've been on. Far more comfortable restraints, and cars that actually get some decent revolution through the second half of the ride. Zamperla are probably kings of the genre. Number 86 is Boomerang at Luna Park Sydney. This is a Gerstlauer family shuttle coaster and I've always been impressed by how smooth it runs. There's a little bit of force to it sometimes, but overall it's just a very fun and satisfying family coaster experience. Number 85 is Flume Ride at Edar Theme Park. This is an RES flume ride that technically qualifies as a credit due to the dry track section before the drop. The ride seems to present itself like it will be well themed, but it's really not. However, the splashdown is one of the biggest and best I've ever ridden. Number 84 is Armada Invincible at Formosan Aboriginal Culture Village. This is a Mark Super Splash and it was definitely the most beautiful ride at the park. The theming and presentation throughout this whole area was excellent. The ride was, again, nothing special, but with a decent splashdown and those cheeky geysers.
Fucking scared the shit out of me.
Number 83 is Storm Coaster at SeaWorld. This is a Mark water coaster and it gets a lot of hate in the Australian community, probably because it replaced one of our best ever flume rides, but it's presented okay and the flow to airtime on the final drop is excellent. It could be better, but it's fine. Number 82 is Poseidon at Europa Park. This is another Mark water coaster with a longer layout than Storm and better theming. However, it also runs significantly rougher and shakes from side to side through the dry track sections. I hope that's not the future for Storm Coaster. Number 81 is Scenic Railway at Luna Park, Melbourne. This is a scenic railway coaster designed by Lamarcus Thompson and the oldest operating coaster in the world. It's truly nothing special, but depending on your brakeman, you can get some decent airtime. You can tell it was built in the 1910s. Number 80 is Big Dipper at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. This is an in-house built wooden coaster and one of the most historic attractions at Blackpool, and I thought it was decent fun. There are some great laterals and it runs much smoother than I expected. Still, you can tell it's from the early 20th century. Number 79 is Fridolin's Verrückte Zauberexpress at Phantasiana. This is an ART family launch coaster and I'm in love with this coaster. It's so adorable. The theming is so cute and the ride itself is very charming and fun. I'd love to see ART getting a chance to build more of these around the world. Number 78 is Dino Dash at Emerald Park. This Vekoma family coaster was by far the biggest surprise of Emerald Park. It's incredibly well themed, and despite its short layout, it has some good force for a family coaster and runs 2 laps to make up for that short track length. I love it. Number 77 is Snoopy's Great Race at Universal Studios Japan. This Senyo family coaster is one that I have only vague memories of, but what I do remember is the theming. It may just be a Japanese-made roller skater knockoff, but Universal really went out and made it Universal quality. The ride looked so good. Number 76 is Comet at Whirligator Grand Est. This is a Vekoma Hurricane model and I was expecting it to be a lot worse. It rides okay, the loop has some decent force to it and it's pretty fun. The first drop is a little awkwardly transitioned and I'm not a fan of the over-the-shoulder restraints, but it does the job. Number 75 is Corkscrew Coaster at Rainbow's End. This is an Arrow loop and corkscrew and again I was expecting a lot worse. These models from Arrow are not particularly forceful, but there are some nice positives into the vertical loop. Plus, I love the rainbow trains and track. That's a cute touch. By the way, I want to give a big shout out to these channel members who make this content possible. If you'd like to join the membership crew, click the join button down below. Number 74 is Wave at Drayton Manor. This was an Intamin stand-up coaster, but now has sit-down trains from ART. For all the praises I sang for ART earlier, they didn't get these trains right. The efficiency here is terrible and I feel the ride's layout worked better as a stand-up. It just lacks any truly interesting moments. Number 73 is Spinball Whizzer at Alton Towers. This is a Maurer spinning coaster and certainly the odd one out at Alton Towers just in terms of quality. The ride was fine and there were some good forceful transitions, but the layout is just a bit uninspired and it's really nothing that special. Number 72 is Tres d'Ora at Parc Asterix. This is a Mark bobsled coaster and these are always such an interesting experience. Despite being the longer one I've ridden, this one didn't seem to have the same lateral force, and it still had that really loud vibration through the whole ride. Number 71 is Avalanche at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. This is the other Mark bobsled coaster I've ridden, and this layout is much better. You really climb the walls through some of those turns, which gives it some fun and forceful moments. I actually love this coaster way more than I thought I would. Number 70 is Vampire at Chessington World of Adventures. This arrow suspended coaster grew on me on my second ride. Firstly, I love the theming in the station, but the ride itself is a bit hit and miss. There are some really fast-paced turns that give you great lateral swinging moments, but there is also a lot of straight track and slow moments. Number 69 is Battlestar Galactica Human at Universal Studios Singapore. This Vekoma launch coaster is super clunky. It feels like Vekoma really just designed this coaster to interact with Cylon and forgot that it was also meant to be fun. The first drop is great, but otherwise, it didn't do much for me. Number 78 is Euromere at Europa Park. This Mark spinning coaster is one of the strangest rides I've ever been on. The first half is incredibly slow paced with that endless spiral lift and the weird funky Wild Mouse section, but the second half was fast and fun, and I wish they let the ride free spin during it. Number 67 is Screaming Condor at Leofu Village Theme Park. I was really let down by my first Intamin Impulse. I expected the highlight of the ride to be the float on the spikes, but there was basically none. It gets points for the awesome launch, but this coaster ended up being pointless and a little rough. Number 66 is Revolution at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I was surprised to find that the Arrow launch loop has some good airtime if you ride in the front row. The loop is nice and forceful, and you get that airtime moment on the backwards launch. It was a really decent little ride. Number 65 is Project Zero at Gombaya World. The Maurus Sky Loop is such a strange ride model. It's so incredibly forceful, although it can be nauseating because of how the train tends to shuffle. I think Gombaya World have done an excellent job restoring this ride, and it's a powerful beast. Number 64 is Buzzsaw at Dreamworld. I first rode Project Zero as Buzzsaw, and I have fonder memories of it in its opening years before it got rough. The theming is on equal footing, both parks could have put in more effort, but I think my memories of the ride running smoothly is what makes me prefer Buzzsaw. Number 63 is Big Air at Idar Theme Park. The world's only Vekoma Big Air is such a weird ride. It's intended to be a spinning coaster, but that feature has been disabled for years. Instead, what you get is a straight U-shuttle with some of the most ridiculous and sustained floater airtime I've ever experienced. Number 62 is Rolling X Train at Everland. I thought this Arrow looping coaster was okay. The over-the-shoulder restraints are extremely bulky, but they're not a problem because it isn't rough. The loops are nice and forceful, but the ride doesn't have the pace to offer much force, even though the layout is decent. Number 61 is Galactica at Alton Towers. This B&M flying coaster has a couple of good moments, but overall you can tell it was the prototype. The Fly to Lion version has nice positives, but after that I think the ride just loses its pace and can't find anything interesting to do. The operations were excellent though. Number 60 is 13 at Alton Towers. Alton Towers' Intamin multi-dimension coaster actually underwhelmed me a little bit. I really thought this ride would have much more theming and a far more immersive storyline. In the end, the ride just felt a little short, although I do love the drop track. Number 59 is Kumali at Flamingo Land. This Vekoma SLC is the exception to the rule for me so far. I don't know what it is about this layout variation, but it ran much smoother, almost no headbanging, and that made me actually able to enjoy the inversions and the ride's force. Still not the best, but a major improvement. Number 58 is Mumbo Jumbo at Flamingo Land. If you're an Australian enthusiast, you'll be let down by the other SNS El Locos. The problem is those shoulder pad restraints, which are just super uncomfortable. You'll still get great hang time and forces, but the discomfort really brings the ride down. Number 57 is Colossus at Thorpe Park. This Intamin 10 inversion coaster gets a lot of hate, and I can understand why, but I really thought it wasn't so bad. If they could replace those bulky over-the-shoulder restraints, it would be fine. I'm still not a fan of the quadruple barrel roll. I think that's a dumb element. Number 56 is Smiler at Alton Towers. Ah yes, here come the angry comments. I very publicly said that I was disappointed by the prototype Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster, and here we are. It's outside my top 50. There's no denying it's well themed and forceful, but it's just far too rough and too laterally repetitive for those hard restraints. Number 55 is Space Mountain at Formosan Aboriginal Culture Village. This Vekoma Mark 700 family coaster just absolutely left my jaw on the floor. For a coaster of its size, it offered a rapid, whippy experience in the dark with decent theming and a smooth ride. Not what I expected from this Taiwanese knockoff. Number 54 is Eurosat Can-Can Coaster at Europa Park. Eurosat isn't the craziest ride of all time, but it's plenty of fun, and the theming and music are just a masterful touch. It's one of those coasters that isn't particularly groundbreaking, but you just leave the ride with a smile on your face. I loved it. Number 53 is Comet Express at Lotte World. This is another coaster that I had no expectations for and ended up loving. The Intamin Twist and Turn is a bizarre model, and this one uses booster wheels to really give you some whip. It's brilliantly themed and way more forceful than I expected. It's a hidden gem. Number 52 is Wild Mouse at Luna Park, Sydney. One of the very last wooden Wild Mouse coasters in the world, and it's a treasure. There's something really added to the Wild Mouse experience by a rough wooden track. I have such a fondness for the feeling that you might hurtle off the tracks into the harbour below. It's excellent. Number 51 is Pegasus Express at Park Asterix. This Gerstlauer family coaster was one of the more charming rides at Park Asterix, with humorous theming, plenty of surprises, and an actually fast-paced and forceful little backwards section. It's just an excellent family coaster, aside from those Gerstlauer lap bars. That wraps up part 1 of my top 100 coasters for 2024. Join me tomorrow as we count down positions 50 to 1. Don't forget to click the like button, and if you're seeing this channel for the first time, please also click the subscribe button. Thank you all so much for your support, and I will see you in the next video.